do step in.
Well, are you the lady of the house?
Yes, I'm Miss Brewster.
Hello, operator. Give me long distance, please.
And this is my sister, another Miss Brewster.
My name's Gibbs.
Well, do sit down. I'm sorry, we're just setting the table for dinner. This would be a nice, comfortable chair.
Oh, hello. Long distance? How about the Happydale Sanitarium, Happydale, New York?
Is Brooklyn your home?
Haven't got a home. Live in a hotel. Don't like it.
Are your family Brooklyn people?
Hello,
Haven't got any family.
What, operator?
All alone in the world?
Yep.
No.
Well, Martha.
No, Happydale. Yes.
Well, you've come to just the right house. Do sit down.
Dale. D like in dig. You know when you dig a lock? That's right. And yeah, A like in arsenic. Got that?
Is there always this much noise?
Oh, he doesn't live with us.
See the headlines, huh? Oh, see. Hello.
I'd really like to see the room. I don't think I'll like it.
The room's upstairs. Won't you try a glass of our wine before we start up?
Never touch it.
Oh, we make this ourselves. It's elderberry wine.
Elderberry? I haven't tasted elderberry wine since I was a boy.
Oh!
Thank you.
Operator! Look, I don't want the Happydale laundry. I want the Happydale sanitarium. Sanitarium. Yes, like a broken record.
Have your own elderberry bushes?
No, but the cemetery's full of them.
Oh. Well, scold.
Hello, operator. Look, operator, what's taking you so long? It's only across the river. I can swim it faster. Yes. Hello. What? They're busy? Busy? Look, they're busy and you're dizzy. No, I'm not drunk, madam, but you give me an idea.
Mortimer.
Dolly, don't. I'm nervous now. Don't do that.
Mortimer, not that.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com and this is my good friend and co-host Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so look. We're kind of new at this. If you're a longtime listener, you know that this is the first time ever we're trying mysteries in May. We like to do theme months. You might be thinking like, hey, Margos, this is not a mystery. Okay, you're right. It's not. But cut it some slack. A lot's been going on. So we'll get into that part of it in just a minute. And also, you might be saying, hey, Margos, this movie isn't based on a book. You are also right. Back in the bleak days of 2000, we decided to do a brand new episode every single week. And in order to achieve that, we have to expand what we mean when we say book. In this case, book is the script in a theatrical play, which is what that is often called. And but really, we will consider any movie that has been adapted from any kind of literary source. It could be a poem. It could be a song. It could be a short story or a novella or a magazine article. It could be a nonfiction book. As long as it is easy for us and you to get our hands on the source material, and as long as the movie is streaming on a major platform, we will consider it. Now, next week, we are definitely doing an actual mystery, I promise. But if you're new, we have certain times of the year where we do theme months. We do musicals in March. When's the month that we do Disney? I forgot already.
December. We've done. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
December.
December. Yeah. Holiday movies, of course. October, we always do spooky, scary, suspenseful movies. This week's movie would have been a perfect October pick, but oh well. And so this year, for the first time in our 10-year history, we decided to try Mysteries in May. And it's been going rather well, I think we can say. But anyway, we have a lot of episodes coming up where we haven't quite decided what we're going to do. And I'll bet you have some suggestions for some movies, some source material that you would think we would enjoy discussing with you here on the air and also on the internet. There's a few places where you can make those suggestions. You can interact with other listeners. We have ourselves a very nice little corner of the internet, and we'd love for you to join us there.
We have a basic Facebook page. Be sure to like it if you're on Facebook. The episodes are all posted there first, but we're much more interactive in our Facebook group. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. At those places, you spell out book versus a movie. And we have an old-timey email, book versus movie podcast, spell it out, at gmail.com. And if you would like some stickers, email us your address and we'll drop them in the mail for you.
And if you really enjoy the show and would like to help keep us in books and movies, you can also support us on Patreon.
That's Patreon. We have over 7 years worth of shows up on that Patreon wall. Or we use the money just to get books and movies and to pay for the hosting costs and things like that. You can actually join it for free. And I put up stuff there like the trailers from the movie and things like that, just so you could check it out for yourselves. But for those of you that do sign up, like I said, you have access to about 7 years worth of movies that we've covered. I want to say hello to Harriet, who just joined our Patreon page. And recently we put up there A Streetcar Named Desire, Whip It, Drew Barrymore, and To Sir with Love.
I forgot that we did Whip It.
I know. I was like, oh, that was so much. I had Kristen Wiig in it. I was like, oh my
it's
God.
It's good. Yeah.
It's great.
The book is really interesting. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff. It's been a lot of years, y'all, that we've been at this. So plenty of books and movies, but nevertheless, we are always looking for more ideas. So yeah, I don't know. We both went into this week thinking that this was a mystery, and it's not really. It's more of a farce than anything else. But we love Cary Grant, and it's a lot of fun. So we're just gonna pause the mysteries for this week, and we're just gonna talk about Arsenic and Old Lace, because it's a really, really. I really enjoyed actually learning about this play and its history, and this movie and its history. It's a very interesting moment in American film history, and we're going to be talking about. Well, let's just get into it. So this play was a hit play, and I just want to say, I don't know if this is a trope. I mostly know of it as an American trope. And I always think of this as an American thing. This trope of wackadoo family and one normie, right? Like the Munsters, Kaufman and Hart. You can't take it with you. Same exact. You've got all these wackadoo family members, and the one normie who is in love with another normie and is worried what they're going to think about their wackadoo family. It was something that happens. We see over and over and over again. It's such an American beloved device. And this one it's a little dark. It takes us to kind of a darker level than the Munsters are fun. Like the Munsters are not actually killing people.
No, they're not.
This one,
That's my Herman Munster laugh.
But the thing we have to remember when we're talking about this play, and especially this movie, Pearl Harbor hasn't happened yet. Clouds are forming over Europe, but the United States is kind of in a little bit of a state of denial about what's going on. So you have plays like You Can't Take It With You and Arsenic and Old Lace, where they're just like for funsies. It's basically like a sitcom. They're not that deep, but there's a lot of fun stuff there. So we have our playwright's name is Joseph Kesselring. We weren't able to find that much about him. He just seems to be like a guy that was around that scene, right, and had this hit play.
Exactly. He was born June 21st, 1902. He was born in New York City. He stayed in New York. I mean, this was a very popular play. He had other works. There's this Wisdom and Women, 412s, but the thing he's mostly known for is Arsenic and Old Lace. And when it was released in 1941, as Margos said, and if you look this up, in America and in England, people were looking for more lighthearted fare, like in the 30s before that. And a lot of that was government-funded plays. There was all that work, the Works program and things like that. Now it's like people, there's children overseas that are being orphaned or having to be moved around. And so this play comes along and it's just like drops in the middle, and it's just sort of this fun, frivolous, maybe, there's scary things you're dealing with, but if you laugh at it, you can find your way around it and figure it out. And so that's what we have here. I mean, I'm obsessed with like where in Brooklyn this takes place, because it's a house, like a gigantic house with a graveyard next to it, but it's by the Brooklyn Bridge. So I'm like,
I also wondered, like, because I know Brooklyn a little bit. I went to grad school in Brooklyn, and I'm like, where are we?
But it became a huge hit, and it played for over 1,300 performances. And as quite often happens, as we mentioned at the top of the show, the script for the theater, for the play, is called The Book. So that's why they sold the book. He sold the book to Warner Brothers to make a movie out of this. And very quickly premiered in January, and then by October of 1941, they were filming this movie. And at that time, there was things going on in Europe where people were joining the war, World War II, but America, as Margos said, America was not going in just yet. They're filming the movie at this time, and then Pearl Harbor happens. We'll talk about the movie, but there wasn't enough time to edit it to Cary Grant's specifications, or I think even Frank Capra's.
Yeah. A guy that was just a part of it was a very vibrant theater scene, and Broadway was a very big deal. It was as big a deal as Hollywood, and as big a moneymaker as Hollywood at the time. And so part of the weird timing because again, like when this movie comes out and you know that America has just gone to war when the movie actually comes out, you're like, why this movie? It seems a little odd when you're looking at it from a historical perspective, as much as people love this movie. But the thing to remember is that they did want to kind of turn it into a movie right away, but they made a stipulation that we don't want to release the movie while it's still playing on Broadway, because we don't want the movie release to interfere with the Broadway, profits. And so it kind of got delayed and delayed and delayed to the point where, Pearl Harbor happens, in post-production. It is very funny. It is very funny. It's very fast moving. If you are familiar with the play, You Can't Take It With You. Like I said, it's like the darker cousin of that, but it's very farcical. We have our main character, and this I think is very weird I just think I can't relate, as what I'm saying. In the 21st century, I cannot relate to a main character who is a theater critic. Okay, he's a theater critic. So quick, Margot, your favorite theater critic that's active right now. Okay. So not only do you not have a name, you don't know anything about any of their personal lives. We don't care.
I just know they're grouchy.
They're grouchy.
They're very, very particular, especially New York critics were fearsome. I mean, it's less so now with social media, but Brosley Cowther, I think, is the name that I'm thinking of. I mean, you talk about New York. I have a friend actually that was, she got her degree in this and theater criticism, but yeah, I mean, she would just say they're a humorless bunch. They just tend to be.
Yeah, you just go to find things to pick
things apart.
Yeah,
right. And I also can I mention really quick is that he went to a Mennonite college in. Bethel College in North Newton, Kansas, and he actually bases a lot of his characters on the odd people that he knew in Kansas. So there's sort of like, it takes place in Brooklyn, but if you told me this took place in Kansas, I'd be like, yes, that I understand. Not that we don't have our I live in Brooklyn. That's not that we don't have our wackos here, but
I don't get the Brooklyn thing. I have to say, the only thing with the Brooklyn is that is to make it plausible that our main character is this theater critic. So it's plausible that he lives in New York City and his wacky family lives. In those days, Brooklyn was. It sounds weird to say. In those days, Brooklyn was farther away from Manhattan than it is today. People didn't go back and forth. People didn't commute in as much as they do now, and it wasn't as fluid. The boroughs were not as fluid as they are today. So Brooklyn was like the boonies, that's where you way out, your family was from Brooklyn and you lived in Manhattan. They might as well have been in Kansas. And the play,
people didn't leave.
No, people didn't leave.
Their neighborhoods even.
And the play makes a lot of jokes about, oh, that's what the podunk people in Brooklyn do. Oh, that's what the, they're basically like hillbillies, like
Right.
that's what they do way over there in Brooklyn. It's not like a 20-minute subway ride.
The only thing I could think of is Vinegar Hill, which is this neighborhood in Brooklyn that's got cobblestone streets, and it's but even there, I'm sorry, I'm obsessing. It's a very. I also think like we like Brooklyn, New York City cops in a play. They are a source of humor.
This is true. There's a lot of poking fun at that. So yes, he's a film critic, but like he's super famous, and we've had this before in other movies that we've talked about, like Lorre, where you have a theater critic and like everybody knows who he is, and everybody knows all the intimate details of his personal life, and so the fact that he wants to get married to the girl who he grew up to next door on the other side of the graveyard in Brooklyn, wherever that is. Everybody's all up in his business, like other reporters, or you're like, okay, but I guess maybe
there
that's how it
were
was.
several daily newspapers at the time. There was an evening paper, there was a morning paper, there were competing tabloids. And New York New York theater has always been a big part of our ecosystem here, our economic system. But anyway, and also all the TV studios were based in New York for a long time, not until like the 50s or 60s did they all go out to California. So it was sort of the entertainment center.
Okay, so that's our main character. His name is Mortimer Brewster.
Yes,
the theater critic. Now, this is his family in Brooklyn. So he grew up next to a graveyard. On the other side of the graveyard lived a minister. He's a
preacher, pastor,
and he's in love with the pastor's daughter. They're going to get married. Why the pastor's daughter, who lived next door all her life, doesn't really know about the eccentric family, I'm not clear, but okay. So he was raised by his two spinster aunts, Aunt Martha and Aunt Abby, and everybody seems to call them Aunt Martha and Aunt Abby. And they are very much like the fairy godmothers in Cinderella, the bibbidi bobbidi boo, and not Cinderella, in Sleeping Beauty, the one with the little fairy godmothers. They're very like that, very flibberty gibbet. I love these women are such brilliant actresses, and they play the roles in the movie as well. The way they like prance around, I don't know how else to describe it. They just like bloop, 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 like prance around their little house, like quietly murdering people. So he has these two spinster aunts. They're perfectly lovely, very throwback to the end of the 19th century. He has an uncle named Teddy. He's an orphan. So he has an uncle named Teddy, and these are the people who raised him, who believes he is Teddy Roosevelt, and is constantly charging up San Juan Hill. And it's very chaotic. He's screaming. He's running up the hill, charge! And he's blowing a bugle. We hear he has this very, very sadistic, I'm going to say, brother named Jonathan. And they're all talking about like, oh, well, Jonathan, like he was really nuts. Jonathan, nobody's seen for many years. Mortimer's going to get married, Mortimer's getting married to the girl next door. So Brewster comes home and he announces to his aunts that he's getting married, discovers that they've been quietly murdering people who they deem to be lonely. They're men. They're, deemed to be lonely. They're not like robbing them or anything. They're just, to their minds, putting them out of their misery. It's very odd.
Yeah. They own the house, and somebody left them the house and left them a lot of money. And so they can just kind of do whatever they want to do. And I guess for this time, they've been in their 60s, maybe. They wear similar outfits. And like Margot says, they just, they trade quips and they bounce around the house. And this is when Mortimer comes to visit and check in on them. He notices there's a dead guy in the window seat, under the window seat. And they're like, and their whole thing is they technically are supposed to be running some sort of hotel, or like I would say an Airbnb, like you can rent a room there, but they don't rent rooms to people. They just give them a meal and make them feel good. And then if they really feel sorry for the fella, they mix up an elderberry wine with some poison, and then he dies. And then they just put him, they're not robbing him. In their own wacky way, they think they're doing somebody a favor because they're just going to die anyway, and why die alone in our basement? And I don't understand how these two older ladies can drag a man's body to a cellar and then dig, and then wouldn't it smell? That's
We're
supposed
not
to
worried
ask
about
these
that.
questions.
No, we're not worried about that.
No.
We should say also the title. So it's called Arsenic and Old Lace. And the reason it's called Arsenic and Old Lace is because at the time there was a very popular collection of humorous stories that was out by somebody named Frank Sullivan called Broccoli and Old Lace. So that's something that like a lot of people would have known. And so I don't know if it's an expression that people threw around. I do not know. But when people said arsenic and old lace, they were like, oh, haha, like broccoli and old lace. So there's a lot of like references that we just don't get. The whole script has a lot of stuff like that, jokes and references that are current to the time and that we completely lost on us. So Teddy Roosevelt, the uncle, Teddy, who believes he's Teddy Roosevelt, the aunts convince him that he's digging the Panama Canal in the basement. And then they go,
that's it.
Right?
Okay.
And they say, oh, Teddy, Mr. President, we have a victim of yellow fever. We must bury him in the lock that the Panama, for the Panama Canal that you're digging in the basement. And he says, oh, yes, let's take care of it. And so they've buried a dozen people in the basement. And somehow Mortimer is hearing about this for the very first time.
He had no clue.
No idea.
He just thought they were just kind of kooky, and he's just been doing his own thing in New York for a long time, being a very famous critic. He's now worried about getting married. He wants to get married immediately to this lovely girl, Elaine, but he is worried if they have kids, the kids will inherit what's going wrong in his family because he has a murderous brother, and now he's finding out his aunts are murderous. So now does the insanity run, and he has Teddy Roosevelt in his house. So
and again,
does insanity run in the family? This
is at a time where psychology was a very hot thing to explore in Broadway plays in particular. It was something that was super pervasive. We see these things about psychoanalysts and mental health treatments such as they were. So we already know that the aunts have arranged for, because the aunts are the eldest. And the aunts have arranged that when they pass, they're assuming they're going to pass together. I do not know. But the assumption is that when they pass, they've made arrangements for their younger brother, Teddy, who thinks he's President Teddy Roosevelt. Mortimer is like, oh, gosh, we need to get Teddy out of here, first of all. And so his kind of drive through the whole thing is getting Teddy sent to, it's called the Happy Day. And so he's trying to get him there as soon as possible. Now, in the middle of all of this, and he's thinking, like, my aunts are criminals, and how do I keep them out of jail? Because he loves them. They seem to have their hearts in the right place, but, they are murdering people. His brother, Jonathan, turns up, but nobody recognizes him because Jonathan's been on the run from the law. He is a serial killer, basically. And he has this accomplice who is a doctor, Dr. Einstein.
Who's an alcoholic.
And let's be clear, Albert Einstein was definitely alive at this time.
Yes.
Yeah, who's an alcoholic. And Dr. Einstein is a plastic surgeon. And so when Jonathan commits murders, they go on the lam. Dr. Einstein rearranges Jonathan's face. And this joke is that they go, oh, you look like Boris Karloff. Now, Boris Karloff was a very famous character actor who a lot of us know from playing Frankenstein's monster. But here's the thing. In the Broadway show, the Jonathan, the murderous brother who has had plastic surgery and now looks like Boris Karloff, is played by Boris Karloff. So there's this running gag in the whole thing about them going like, wow, you look just like Boris Karloff. And it's Boris Karloff.
It is Boris Karloff. He was a big star, and he was like the name star of the play.
Oh, yeah.
Because Cary Grant was not in the play.
No.
On Broadway. So that's the big joke. And there are all kinds of
it's all
references
shenanigans.
to that.
People are running around the house. They're moving bodies. The police keep showing up and not figuring out what's going on and spinning round and round and round and slamming doors and charging up San Juan Hill and digging locks in the basement and so on. Jonathan is trying to take over the house and get everybody else out of the house. He wants to live there and commit his crimes there. Eventually, we're gonna spoil the ending. Eventually, Jonathan, the police figure out that Jonathan is this murderous serial killer that they've all been hunting for. They arrest him. I think Dr. Einstein gets away, and there's a lot of getting away with murder in this play.
Yes.
Dr. Einstein gets away, but not before, because the commitment papers, they have to be signed by a doctor. So Mortimer gets his aunts willingly, with their consent, he commits them to the Happy Day Sanitarium with Teddy, gets them out of the house. They're perfectly happy to go spend the rest of their days there together. They're delighted. He now has this house, but he's still concerned about getting married and having children, because he's worried that the mental illness in his family is going to be passed on. And before the aunts go off with the uncle, President Roosevelt, they say to him, "Oh, you're not actually a Brewster. You're not actually one of us. Actually, you were." Okay, now this is very interesting to me. He's in the play. This is what happens in the play, and this is not in the movie. Mm-hmm. In the play, this is all the way at the end of the play. We've had all the shenanigans. As they're leaving, the aunts say to Mortimer, "By the way, we love you, but you're not actually blood related. We had a cook that came to work with us, and she was pregnant. She was unwed, and she was pregnant, and she gave birth to you 3 months later." I forget what happens to her, what happens to the cook. I don't know if she dies or what, but the aunts raise him as their own. So you're not actually one of us. Now, in the play, Mortimer is relieved that he doesn't have, that he knows of, he's not blood related to these people. He doesn't seem to have any mental illness in his family that he's now he's worried about passing on. May or may not be true. But he's also now deeply concerned that Elaine will not marry him because he is illegitimate.
And her father's the pastor.
And their father's the pastor. Like, this was a big deal. So he goes and he confesses. It's like this deep, dark confession that he was illegitimate. Like, who cares? But she doesn't care. She doesn't care at all. And they end up, living happily ever after. But this was such a point, not the murdering, not the sadistic brother or any of that kind of stuff. The fact that the main character might be illegitimate was such a cause for concern that they wrote an alternate ending in which the cook that comes to live with them was actually a widow. She was married. She wasn't actually an unwed mother. Therefore, he is not actually illegitimate. Yeah, I just found that so odd. Like, that's the thing you're concerned about? Okay. I knew relatives
this, though. I knew relatives like this that had that very scornful eye about people they heard about, people who had kids out of wedlock.
Yes, absolutely. Same. Yeah, it was a big, big deal. Anyway, so it's
a big hit on Broadway, and it's a huge hit in London. And London, where, they had the Blitz going on, and people still lined up to see this show. It's a farce. I mean, it's over the top silly, but I think it's very funny. I mean, I do.
There's a lot. It is extremely funny. The characters are so extreme. The aunts are such little flibberty gibbets, and Uncle Teddy is so boisterous and loud, and Jonathan is so frighteningly dark. Like, he legit is about to kill his brother, who we believe to be his brother, who he had tortured throughout his childhood, we learn, and yet it's very funny. Like, the police, the whole thing with the police is all extremely funny. But I mean, that's basically it. Like, the guy has a weird family. He's worried what his wife is going to think. Turns out they're even weirder than he thought. His aunts get away with murder. And his brother does not.
Right. And Lugosi did not get to play the part in the movie because
Karloff.
He was still... Karloff didn't get to play in the movie because he was contracted to stay with the show. And he was a pretty good sport about it. He always regretted not being asked, but it was a big part for him. But anyway, there's also, you can see Karloff, he does this. I don't know if you saw it. It was a Hallmark Presents from 1962. It's black and white, and he gets to play that character. And it's got Tony Randall as Mortimer. And the guy who plays Mr. C in Happy Days, Tom Bosley, he plays Teddy Roosevelt. It's perfect casting.
Yeah.
It's perfect casting. So it's fun to see him do that, and that. which is on YouTube. You could find it for
That's
yourselves.
so cool. The original Mortimer, the main character on the stage, was played by Alan Joslin, who was mostly known. We would mostly know him as a character actor from mid-century television. He would show up on this or that. He wasn't like somebody who we would think of as like a big leading man, but he must have been, quite a. He must have had quite a stage career to be the lead in. This is a hard show to do. I gotta think, right? Just physically,
he's in every scene.
He's in
right?
every scene. So to be able to carry a show like this, he must have had quite a stage career. But you and I wouldn't know him from anything but like small roles on television. A lot of the cast in the play from the original Broadway show, we know in the movie are aunts Martha and Abby by Josephine Hall and Jean Adair. Does John Alexander play him? Is that the one?
Yes.
No, we have somebody else in the movie playing Uncle Teddy, right?
No, it's John Alexander.
Oh no, it's him. John Alexander, who plays Uncle Teddy, is the same who plays him on the stage.
Let's play the trailer.
No, I can't. I won't. I can't go through with it. I won't marry you, and that's that. Look, don't you see, dear? Marriage, it's a superstition. It's old-fashioned. Oh. Now, Mr. Brewster. Now, look, don't you... Goodbye, dear. There's a body in the window seat.
Yes, dear. We know.
Our director is Frank Capra. The screenplay is by Julius Epstein and Philip G. Epstein. It's a Warner Brothers production. It's in the fall of 1941 when they filmed this. Once again, December 7th is when we would enter World War II.
Yeah.
But there's a lot going on overseas. We have Raymond Massey as...
Who is terrifying.
Who's great.
In this.
Shall we bring him in? All right. We'll hold him right here. The lieutenant is on his way over.
So I've been turned in, eh? All right. You got me. I suppose you and my stool pigeon brother will split the reward.
Reward?
Yes, reward. Now I'll do some turning in.
Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Brewster.
You think my aunts are sweet, charming old ladies, don't you? Well, there's 13 bodies buried in the cellar. Yes, 13.
Be careful what you say about your aunts. They happen to be friends of ours.
I'll show them to you.
Don't you make any trouble for them, do you hear me?
Oh.
Never mind, Mr. Brewster. Leave him to me. I'll take care of him.
You come down to the cellar.
Wait a minute. Now, wait a minute.
13 bodies. I'll show you where they're buried.
Oh, yeah?
Go on down the cellar with them, O'Hara.
Yes, come to the cellar.
Well, look, do I have to? Look, Sarge, maybe I don't want to go down to the cellar with him.
Go on down the cellar with them.
Oh, now, please, Mr. Brewster. I'll tell you the rest of my play later.
Go on down the cellar with them.
Gee, do I have to, Sarge? Look at that puss. He looks like Boris Karloff.
Ah!
No! Sarge! Look out, Pat! Look out, Pat!
Got a gun.
I got it, Pat! Look out! Fight. Go on, fight. That's enough. That's enough. Everybody off. Pat, look out!
Amazing.
Such a fine day, too. All I did was cross the bridge and I was in Brooklyn. Amazing. Don't.
I know Raymond
Jonathan.
Massey mostly as the dad in East of Eden.
That and he played Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
In something.
Yeah. I mean,
I
he's
remember that.
known, we don't think of him as a comedic actor. He is really scary in this, but it's to a very funny effect. And they continue the Karloff joke, but the joke is more that he looks like Frankenstein, but they keep saying that it's Frankenstein's monster, because he's got scars and stitches all over his face. Yeah, but a lot of the same Broadway cast.
Peter Lorre is in the movie as Dr.
I love
Epstein.
Peter Lorre.
Peter Lorre, I mean, gone way too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Priscilla Lane is the girlfriend, and Edwin Everett, Horton,
Yes.
who plays Mr. Witherspoon.
I always think, I love him. I think he is one of the great character actors of American cinema. But I hear that voice and I just hear the Fractured Fairy Tales. Remember on Rocky and Bullwinkle?
Yes.
It will be compulsory that we have the signature of a physician.
Oh, Doctor. Oh, Dr. Einstein. Come here and sign some papers, please.
Good night.
Come here, Dr. Einstein.
A doctor?
Oh, yes. Dr. Einstein almost operated on me earlier this evening. Come along, Doctor. Here. Now, just sign right here, please, Doctor.
Yes.
Were you leaving, Doctor?
Yes, please.
Oh, aren't you going to wait for Jonathan?
I don't think we go to the same place.
Hello, Mike. We picked up that guy that's wanted in Indiana. His accomplice description is right on the circular. It's on the desk in front of you. Read it to me, will you? Yeah. About 40. 5'3". 140 pounds. Pop eyes. Talks with a German accent. Poses as a doctor. Okay, Mike, thanks.
It's all right, Lieutenant Rooney. The doctor here has completed the signatures.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Doc. You've done Brooklyn a great service.
But Dr. Einstein.
But they keep most of the same plot. I mean, Cary Grant is our Mortimer. He doesn't like his performance very much. I can see why there's some times where some takes, it's very broad. It's probably more broad than he...
broad. Even
right,
for
and
him.
he would have reined it in.
Yeah.
Yes, and he had good comedy chops. I mean, this guy knew a joke. But I still think he's great. I still think it's wonderful. I love Cary Grant, so I'm a stan for Cary Grant, so I'm gonna stay with it. He's gonna get married. They're at the office. They're gonna get their marriage license. It was considered a big deal because there's a black couple standing in front of them in the line.
There is.
But I guess that's the Capra part of it. They go to Brooklyn and they built this on a sound stage. So they have in the background, you can see the Brooklyn Bridge and the New York skyline. But you have this cottage, and then we have a graveyard. And then so he's bringing her home to meet his family. And she thinks like, wow, they're just cute old ladies. They like, I can't wait to meet you all and get to know you better and get for us to be a family.
Again, I cannot stress enough. She grew up next door.
And these ladies talk to everybody. Like people are,
it's not like
constantly dropping by.
They're not hermits. Everybody, we established that like everybody knows these ladies. Everybody loves them. Everybody knows them except the people who live next door somehow. And there's this whole thing where the pastor, Priscilla Elaine's dad, Elaine's father, is meeting them. Like he's come over for tea. And they're like, oh, we've met the pastor. Like, dude, he lives next door. What do you mean you just met him? What? Okay. But let's talk a little bit about Frank Capra, because I think this is really... So Frank Capra, this little section of his career, because he has a long, very long, extensive filmography. But this is a super interesting period in his work. So we have You Can't Take It With You, which we've just been talking about, the Kaufman and Hart. Very similar themes in this movie, but not quite as broad. That's with Jimmy Stewart in the main role as the normie. And so we've got You Can't Take It With You. And then we have Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
We've covered that.
Spectacular. And then we have Meet John Doe, Gary Cooper, Barbara Stanwyck. Then we have Arsenic and Old Lace, although he's making Arsenic and Old Lace and I think Meet John Doe around the same time. Then he goes to war. And so his very next film after this super, super broad farce is It's a Wonderful Life, which is like total shift in his work. You know, he would never, it's just like a completely different guy in many ways. Because he's by that point, it's not a lot of time, but he sees a lot, he experiences a lot, and it totally changes his approach to his work. He always kind of explores American culture and what it means to be an American, and Mr. Smith and all of that. And his take on it becomes much deeper and much more nuanced after this movie. So anyway, it's just a really interesting, that the war breaks out right as he's finishing this movie. I think is really interesting. And he is enlisted. He wants to go, but he also needs to finish this movie.
And he had promised Cary Grant that they would use other takes because, like we said, Grant was at other comedies. He knew he had comedy chops. He knew what he was talking about. But it was just like in the middle of December 1941. Like there are other things going on that they have to worry about.
Bigger fish to fry.
Bigger fish to fry. So Warner Brothers basically they agree on a copy, but they had that agreement that they wouldn't release the movie until after it stops playing on Broadway, which is also similar, by the way, to Grease. John Travolta's played Grease, and that doesn't come out until 1978. Anyway, so it's a Halloween day. He marries his girl. He brings her home to meet the family next door, and then he sends her to her parents' house. Like, I'm gonna figure out what's going on here, and so she goes over there, and she meets Teddy Roosevelt. And she's totally fine. Like she's a cool chick. She
didn't care.
Nothing bothers her. She's just happy to get married to Cary Grant, which I don't blame her. And then he starts looking for, he wants to write his next book because he doesn't like being a drama critic. He thinks it's beneath him. So he's trying to write a book, and that's when he peeks under the seat and he sees there's a corpse there.
No. Teddy's got to go to Happydale now, at once. Now, he's down in the cellar. Get him up here right away.
Well, there's no such hurry as that.
No. When Teddy's working on the canal, you can't get his mind on anything else.
Well, look, darlings. Look, I'm frightfully sorry, but I've got an awful shock for you. Teddy's killed a man, darlings.
Nonsense.
But there's a body in the window seat.
Yes, dear. We know.
You know?
Of course. Yes, but it has nothing to do with Teddy.
But the
now,
thing...
Mortimer, you just forget about it. Forget you ever saw the gentleman.
Forget?
We never dreamed you'd peek.
What the... Who is he?
He's a Mr. Hoskins, Adam Hoskins. That's really all I know about him, except that he's a Methodist.
Oh, he's a Methodist. Oh, isn't that nice?
That's all you know. Well, what's he doing here? What happened to him?
He died.
Look, Aunt Martha, men just don't get into window seats and die.
Oh, no, dear. He died first.
Oh, wait a minute. Stop all this. Now, look, darling, how did he die?
Oh, Mortimer, don't be so inquisitive. The gentleman died because he drank some wine with poison in it.
Well, how did the poison get in the wine?
Well, we put it in wine because it's less noticeable. When it's in tea, it has a distinct odor.
You mean you put it in the wine?
Yes, and I put Mr. Hoskins in the window seat because Reverend Harper was coming.
Oh, look at me, darling. You mean you knew what you'd done and you didn't want the Reverend Harper to see the body?
Well, not at tea. That wouldn't have been very nice.
Oh, it's first degree.
Now, Mortimer, you know all about it and just forget about it. I do think that Martha and I have the right to our own little...
Thinks it's Teddy that's killing people, but then his aunts very cheerfully explain, like, nah, we have lonely men come here and they want to stay for the night or whatever, and we just, we figure out what their deal is, and if we think it's time for them to go, we give them elderberry wine with some arsenic and a little bit of cyanide, and boom, they're gone, and it's really sweet. And he's like, what? So as they're going through all this, Jonathan shows up, and that's Raymond Massey, and as Margos says, he has scars all over his face, so they're always making those kind of jokes. And Peter Lorre is hilarious as Dr. Epps. He's always great. It's a farce. It's madcap. I mean, it's a lot of running up and down the stairs. It's a lot of Cary Grant's breaking a sweat, landing all the jokes that they have going on. He tries to warn the police. He is scared of his brother, which he should be because Raymond Massey is terrifying in this thing. But very funny. His brother does say he wants to murder his brother. Jonathan wants to kill Mortimer. So Elaine is like, why aren't we going on our honeymoon? What's going on? She comes over to the house, and then Jonathan puts her in the basement. And this is where she finds out, oh, my God, there's a lot of bodies down there. Did you know about this? He's like, yeah, I just learned today.
There's a thing. I just remembered there's a thing in the end of the play, too, about what they're going to do with it never even comes up in the movie, but there's a thing in the play about what are we going to do with this house that's filled with bodies in the basement? Well, we are next to the cemetery. Well, there's a whole, I forget what they decide to do with the house, but there's something they decide to do because
I can't help but think of Poltergeist.
I know, me too.
Right?
Poltergeist.
I was like, no, I'm not living in that. I don't care if it's free. You can't pay me. No, but anyway, like we said, it's all just kind of played silly and it's played for laughs. But it is, I mean, honestly, I watched it last night and then I watched a different version this morning and I was laughing out loud each time.
It's very, very funny.
It's very fun.
Everybody in this is such a great physical comedian. Including Priscilla Lane. I wish I knew more about her. I thought she was absolutely terrific.
She's great.
She's super, super good. I like the two of them together, her and Cary Grant. I buy them as a couple. He gets so worked up and he's understandably so panicked about what to do about what he's just discovered about his family that he completely disregards the fact that he has just gotten married to this woman and they were actually literally on their way to the honeymoon with the cab waiting and all. And
right, the cab guy who's also in It's a Wonderful Life. He's been out there all day like, I have $20 fare here. Come on. So are you going to pay me? And they just keep walking by him. Like, nice knowing you.
It's super funny.
Look, I thought I told you. Oh. Jonathan!
Yes, Mortimer.
What are you two doing still here? I thought I told you to beat it.
We're not going.
You're not going?
No.
No? You stay out of this. All right, you asked for it. Officer O'Hara?
Coming.
Now.
If you tell O'Hara what's in the window seat, I'll tell him what's down in the cellar.
Cellar?
There's an elderly gentleman down there who seems to be very dead.
What were you doing down the cellar?
Well, what is he doing in the cellar?
Now what are you going to tell O'Hara?
See, your eyes think my opening is swell. They want to hear the rest of it. Shall I bring them in here? No, you can't do that. You can't do that now. You better ring in. Oh, the heck with ringing in. You got to be rolling now. I want to tell you the whole plot. Yeah, well, you can't tell me in front of those two fellas. They wouldn't appreciate it. Huh? Oh, lowbrows, huh? Yeah, let's go someplace where we can be alone. I'll meet you there later, say? Okay. Yeah. Say, how about the back room at Kelly's? Kelly's? Yeah. Oh, yeah, fine place. Bohemian attitude. Genius at work. That's the place. Now, you ring in, I'll meet you at Kelly's. All right, fine.
Why don't you both go down in the cellar?
Well, that's all right with me. No. There's a much more literary atmosphere in Kelly's, I assure you. Yeah. Okay. Gloomy in the cellar. This opening will kill you. It will? I'm waiting to be born, see, and the doctor comes in and starts... Oh, the doctor? Yeah. Yeah, well, now, look, you ring in. I'll see you later. Okay. Now, you won't stand me up, will you, Mr. Bruce? Yeah, no. This is a great play. You'll like it, I'm sure. I'll see you down there. Can't wait. Doctor. Where's this paper? Oh, there. Oh, you're smug, aren't you? You think you got it over me? Well, you haven't. You think I'm afraid to go to the police about Spinelzo because you'll blab about Hoskins. Well, I'm not. The moment I get Spinelzo... the moment the doctor signs this, I don't care who knows about him. Hoskins, I mean. And you better feel the same way about Spinelzo. Yes, Spinelzo. You better...
Where are you going?
The doctor's. Where do you think... Oh! When I come back, I expect to find you gone.
It's hard for me to imagine what it must have been like to have seen it on screen when it came out. Because, again, we'd just gone to war. It seems like a big thing that it's not in the movie at all. It just seems like it's something that's such a big part of people. It's like if you watched a movie about 2021 and nobody's talking about the pandemic, like it doesn't seem to impact anybody's life at all. It would be weird, right? So I don't know. But it was a big hit.
It's a huge hit. And actually, Warner Brothers did have a screening of the movie in the UK, like a year before it came out, for GIs over there. Mm-hmm. Like it's part of this USO tour, and it was a huge hit. But it was sort of like Capra found out secondhand, like, wait a minute, what? But it's also, let's be clear, it's escapism, and we've all been through something where we needed our escapism. We needed to pay attention to something that doesn't take place in the time that we're dealing with. So I can understand that. But in the end, at all, the aunts go to the sanitarium. Teddy goes to the sanitarium. Jonathan's taken away, and Elaine and Mortimer can, now that they're married and doesn't think he has insanity in his bones, unless his dad was a chef on a steamship and his mother was a cook. Maybe he's a great cook. He doesn't know it. Who knows? But anyway, it's all's well that ends well. And it's very, very funny. I super enjoyed it. No, it's not a mystery.
No.
But, I just thought that like at some point we're going to be like, no, actually it was Teddy this whole time. But no. It's pretty much the women that told you in the first act pretty much right away.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. But it's great. It's super fun. Yes. It is a great, like, just escapist Jim Cary. I was going to say, we talked about Jim Cary when we talked about Philadelphia Story. We were talking about the physical comedy of Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart. And you were saying that Cary Grant was a better physical comedian than Jim Cary. And when you watch this movie, like, there's really some parallels there. I was kind of, I couldn't help but think, like, this is really very... like a Jim Cary type of performance. It is extremely broad, and extremely physical. Wow.
He was an acrobat. When we talk about Holiday later this year, we'll be talking about that for Christmas season. He was an acrobat, so he was always doing tricks. He was, like you said, very physical, but he also, like I said in our other episode about him, he does a double take better than anybody. And that all just always cracks me up. It's still worth it. I know he thought maybe Jimmy Stewart would have been a better person, but I think he's being hard on himself. It is broad, but it's not so bad. I think it's also kind of what people needed at that time.
I agree. I think that, I'm not mad at it. I think I like it. I could see, like, the escapism of it. I understand. I can understand him feeling
his frustration.
Yes, but but I also think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, book versus movie.
Actually, I'm going to take the movie. I really like this movie. I'll see it again.
Yeah. I enjoyed reading the play. It is a fun play. And just a lot of, I felt like I was getting a little window into a time in our country that every time we look at something like that, we learn something new. So I enjoyed that part of it. But seeing it with most of the original cast was super fun.
It's fun.
Yeah. I really like it.
We've done a bunch of plays, and you don't always get that. And then we talk about, like, oh, I wish I could have seen this person.
Yeah.
What their interpretation was. So.
And great roles for these aunts. Those, like,
yes.
They're
oh
wonderful.
My God.
The female roles in this are really good. So yeah, I agree. I'm gonna give it to the movie. Now, so we're, like I said, we're honest to goodness going to do a mystery next time.
We've decided.
Here in the U.S., when you're going to school and you're taking your literature courses that you have to take, you don't do a lot of mysteries. But this is one that I think every high school, is it high school that we do this? It might even be middle school. When you are reading, this is maybe the one mystery that jumps out at me that we had to read in school. And we're going to be talking about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Hound of the Baskervilles.
Which we're both really excited about. I love that story, and it is a great mystery. And we love Sherlock Holmes, and we're like, but which Sherlock Holmes do we go for? We're going to go with Benedict Cumberbatch. Why not? I love his interpretation of the character.
It's so good.
I love the updates, and we just thought that would be really fun. It's very easy to find. Those episodes from Sherlock are easy to get. Mm-hmm. The book is very, very easy to get. You should be absolutely able to get it on your Libby app or whatever your local library, or it's Audible, or I bet you on YouTube there's people who read it. I mean, it's going to be super easy and super fun. So we're very, very excited about that. So that's for the next episode. But all those places I mentioned before, we are looking for suggestions. So please reach out to us. Once again, our email is bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com. Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all my social media callouts are at She's Not Your Mama. And where can they find you?
You can find me at Brooklyn Fit Chick. That's my site. That's where I am for Threads and Instagram. And I am at Brooklyn Margot for TikTok, and I have some clips of the movie there, and also for Twitter. Okay, everybody, we'll be back soon with a new episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We're a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You can find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. You could find us on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Book versus a Movie. Just spelled it all out. We have a Patreon page. Type in there Book vs. Movie Podcast, where you can find 8 years worth of shows. You can follow Margot D on social media at Brooklyn Margot and also Brooklyn Fit Chick. You can find Margot P at She's Nacho Mama. Thank you again for listening, and please be sure to send along your suggestions for the show. Remember, the book needs to be easy to get your hands on, and the movie has to be streaming on a major platform. We will be back soon with a new episode.